Well, yes, indeed. That's what we start off with today on the program. We're joined by Dr. Obadiah Mailaifia, former Deputy Governor of CBN. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Looking through this plan, you always have skeptics and optimists about plans in terms of how they've been highlighted, the kind of impact they think it will make. Now, you've gone through this. What kind of impact do you think it will have on the economy?
First of all, let me just say that I truly welcome this development, and a lot of work has gone through this plan, particularly the Honorable Minister of Planning and Budget, Udo Odoma, and his colleague, Zainab Ahmed, and Bena Kabweze, the Director General. I know that they do work very hard to get this program to them, get this program together. So kudos to them, and to high commendations to the President for this. If implemented as rigorously as expected, it could have potentially considerable impact, even though I have my reservations about certain aspects that I think don't have enough ambition.
Such as?
We know, for example, it says they want to reduce unemployment from 13% to 11%. That we need to bring down unemployment to about at least at the minimum 7%, not 11%. It is still too high. 11% or 13% of almost 200 million people is a huge amount of people. And of course, the unemployment conceals the social structure of that unemployment, that among the youth segment, it's as high as 20% on average. In some parts of the country, like the Northwest, Northeast, it's up to 60%. That is why you have these huge social problems in some of those societies. Of course, it's much lower in areas like Lagos, Ogun. It's much lower than the 13% that's been quoted. But still, we lack ambition in certain areas. About power, well, there's a lot of talk, but how are you going to do things differently? It's not very clear. And of course, they say that the devil is always in the detail of implementation. The document states that there's going to be a new mechanism and vehicle for implementation, but it's a little bit vague on how this will be done. And then nobody is talking about the public sector. My humble submission is that no matter how ambitious an economic program is, no matter how ambitious, how visionary the politicians are, they will depend on the civil servants to implement. And that is the big elephant in the room. If they decide to sit and do nothing, nothing will happen. So we need to talk about public sector.
You mean to do something about the civil servants?
Yes, we need to do public sector transformation. We need to work on that. It's a huge issue. Nobody talks about it. There's a lot of decay in the civil service, and the standards have fallen. And if you recall the glory days of the civil service, in spite of some of their challenges, they were first rate. In fact, the Nigerian civil service was considered one of the best in the whole of the Commonwealth, ahead of India, ahead of Malaysia, ahead of Singapore.
The Senate President.
And today, it's one of the worst. So we're talking about implementation. These are the people you rely on to implement it.
The Senate President said that, according to his words, will do whatever it takes to make the economic growth, economic plan work.
Yes.
Do you agree that this will actually come through, or do you see limitations that outweighs the positives?
Well, His Excellency the Senate President said, I think if I heard him right, that we should, he didn't say we will, he said we should, he himself was urging. And his role is that of oversight constitutionally, and it is the public service that will have to implement, the civil service, that will have to implement the budget. And the document talks about a new framework for implementation. They need to bring this out very quickly. I wouldn't want to be negative in saying that the challenges outweigh the positives. I think a lot depends on on the government and their commitment to doing things right, to doing things differently, for the benefit of the long-suffering Nigerian people.
It's a thing, you commend the team for coming up with this plan. You think it's a bright idea, even though you say that it's not very ambitious in certain aspects.
Yes.
And you cite unemployment as one of those aspects. And you say that plans to reduce unemployment by a mere 2%, I would say. Can't we take it for granted that if they're targeting to grow at, Nigeria is targeting to grow at 7%
yes.
By the year 2020, and we're also targeting to bring down inflation
yes.
to single digits by
yes.
2020 as well.
Yes.
Can't we take it for granted that perhaps unemployment will also be taken care of in that regard, and maybe might be better than expected? Maybe they're just trying to be a little cautious in the optimism.
A few years ago, a friend of mine who was the chief economist in the World Bank, he wrote a report called Jobless Growth. And that was a description of Nigeria in the best days of our economic growth, when average growth was 7%. We're talking about from 2003 up to 2010. Even 2013. Unemployment was very high, even during those times. So the World Bank used the term jobless growth to describe what was happening. And it is a phenomenon of the Nigerian economy that you can have high and impressive quantitative rates of growth, but that will not necessarily transform into job creation. Not necessarily. You have to take concrete steps to boost unemployment. The kind of investment you're doing. Look at, for example, the rail line. I don't know whether any of you has taken the train from Abuja to Kaduna. It's great fun, and you feel proud to be a Nigerian. But you notice that we did something quite silly. We signed an arrangement whereby the Chinese will bring everything in here and manage it. Ethiopia didn't do that. Ethiopia cleared the land and told the Chinese, come here, invest here, build the coaches here, assemble the engines here. And we want only your managers come. You have to train our people. And railway alone can generate over 5 million jobs in this country if we did it right. So the type of investments, the quality of the investments, this matter considerably. And we need to be more smart about the way we do that.
Now, some people will say that, one of the criticism against this administration is that, their economic plan wasn't quite clear in the early days, even though they refuted that. We went into a recession, we got a short-term recovery plan, and now we're beginning to see more clearly an economic and recovery growth plan. It's called for 3 years, and it's coming 2 years after, it's almost 2 years since they were sworn in.
Yes.
They're hoping that this will last till 2020.
Yes.
Now, how optimistic are you that this plan would work, considering just how Nigeria's political space works? We know that usually work only gets done perhaps in the first, second, and maybe some parts of the third year.
Yes.
By the fourth year, it's all politics.
Yes.
And 2019 is right around the corner. They're hoping to take this or make it last till 2020. Do you think that public servants can rise above politics and see through this economic plan?
I hope they will. We desperately need it. We desperately need something that works. But I would say, in all fairness, better late than never. It came rather late in the day, but better late than never. In fact, just the mere design of this plan has brought some positive fallouts. The international community sees Nigeria slightly differently. The IMF has actually commended the economic plan, and it is not just a policy tool. It is in a way a marketing tool. It is a PR tool, and all these things matter. Perceptions matter as well as substance.
But the IMF released another statement yesterday, releasing, it was sounding more like a warning, and also, giving some instructions, not instructions per se, but, asking the central bank to take certain steps. This is coming alongside, the release or the launch of the economic growth plan. What do you think of the wordings of the IMF statement that was released yesterday?
Well, I'm not sure which of them you're referring to, but they've made a number of noises. For example, they said, of course, we should close the parallel, the various exchange rates, which I agree with, by the way. And then they are saying we should just float the naira. But I'm afraid they're being too clever by half. The IMF, more than anybody, should know that under international economic arrangements, every country has a right to choose its exchange rate regime, so long as it makes that very explicitly clear. You can choose a fixed rate system, you can choose a managed float, or you can choose a floating system. Given our own political economy, we chose a managed float. And I think the IMF should rally behind us to support us in how to make the managed float more transparent and more effective. That is what they should be doing rather than giving us lectures.
We'll come back and examine more of some of these points and the plan when we return. Join us again.